Hi everyone, it's Sunday night, and last time I talked to you on Thursday, I said hopefully soon we would know some changes to the AP exam and have a better idea as to what those changes are going to be. And lo and behold, we have at least a little bit of clarity as to what's going to be happening with the AP exam this year. We know it's going to be very different. We don't know everything yet, but the good news is that April 3rd, which I'll get into here in a little bit, is a date when we should get some clarity for changes that are going to be happening with the AP exam. But we do have a pretty good idea, at least, to how the setup of it is going to go, which is something that one less thing that you have to worry about. But before getting into what we do know, I think it is important to identify what we don't know. But the key word is yet. There are going to certainly be some more information coming along, and like I said, it seems like the first week of April, April the 3rd specifically, which I believe is a Friday, is when we'll get a lot more information coming in. So specific things that we don't know, and I know this seems like a big one, but we don't know the specific content for each exam, meaning whether you're talking about AP English language, composition, calculus, AP US history. Teachers have an idea as to what units are going to be covered, but we don't know what the actual content is going to be. So, like specifically for us with AP English language, I don't know yet how it's going to be so far as rhetorical analysis, synthesis essays, DRQs, what type of passages you're going to be reading, how long. Not don't quite have an idea as to how that's going to work yet. And so again, we don't really know the overall structure of the exam. We do know some things coming up, which I'll get into here in a moment with the structure, but we don't really know yet how it's going to be set up. We know the amount of time overall is going to be 45 minutes, but how those 45 minutes are going to be divvied up is unclear yet. Exam dates are not specific yet. We do know, however, that there are going to be some options. So you're actually going to have two dates that you can choose from, and on April the 3rd, we'll know what those dates are. So there is going to be some flexibility for you with the testing. And I don't yet know the North Hills testing requirements. So, for example, if you were paying for your AP exam and you already had paid for it, the College Board is offering a refund to those who had paid for it. Now, the school district takes care of the cost. And so that was never an issue for you. So the assumption would be that you will still be taking the AP exam, regardless of how comfortable you feel about the content, because that was going to be the case no matter what. But I haven't heard anything yay or nay from the school district itself as to whether or not all students are required. All AP students are still required to take the test for their specific subjects. I would assume that's going to be the case, and unless you hear otherwise, I think that's a pretty safe assumption to be made. So you can see there still are quite a few things that we don't know. The good news is there's light at the end of the tunnel because April the 3rd is when a lot of those things will be answered for us. But there are some specific things that we do know which can certainly be helpful. So, number one, and this is probably the biggest change, and you've already heard that it's going to be an online test. And the test can be taken on any online platform. So, you can take it on a desktop computer, it could be on a laptop, you could take it on a tablet or an iPad, and you can also take it on a smartphone. For those where internet is not available, and I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work, but there's going to be a photo option where I take it that you can submit your work and submit a photo of your work that was done. So, really, there should be a fair amount of flexibility as to how you want to take the test. I would assume desktop or laptop would be the best, just because for me it would be a larger screen and easier to type, assuming that there's going to be some typing involved on your part. But I don't know if something with an iPad is going to be better or a tablet because of like a writing option or whatnot. So again, I think April the 3rd will offer some clarity, but it is going to be an online test, and it's one that you can take pretty much using any kind of device. But there is this option available for us down below here with the photo option where if internet is not going to be available for you for that day, or you still just want to take it the traditional way, with paper and pen and pencil, then that's still going to be an option. But how the photo submission part works, I really do not know yet at this point. Mentioned to you testing dates. Specific testing dates are not known, and it's going to be in May, we're pretty sure, but the specific dates we don't know. However, we do know that on April the 3rd is when those dates are going to be submitted, or are going to not submitted, but are going to be made available to you for the public. And you get an option as to when you want to take the exam. So there's two dates for each subject exam, and then you'll designate which one of those dates you want to do. So far as the time parameters, whether it be an AM test, a PM test, that part I'm not too sure about yet. So we'll have to wait and see. But there's two different dates that you can be able to choose from as to when you want to take the exam. one of the big reasons that people take AP courses, is going to be for the college credit. And according to the College Board, all the colleges are still on board with awarding college credit. Now, again, this was never a guarantee because that can vary from school to school based on what your score is and what their own requirements are going to be, and probably also how many AP exams you're taking, because they tend to put a limit on the number of credits they'll accept. But this exam, this year's exam, 2020, should be judged as all the others were. The scores should be the same, 1 through 5, and the validity and the weight of the scores should be the same thing as to whether you were taking the exam last year or whether you'd be taking it, next year. So colleges are still on board with awarding AP credits, which is good news, and also should still be on board for recognizing the work that you do put into the course. Because even if a school doesn't accept the AP exam score for credits, it certainly can go a long way into determining your eligibility into getting into the school, and also some scholarship offers and grants and things of that nature. So pretty much status quo when it comes to college credit. They're still going to be accepting the credit and looking at it the same way as if they were any other exam. All right, very significant difference. We're going from a 3-hour plus exam, 3.5 hours, to 45 minutes. So all exams, regardless of the content, the subject area that you're looking at, are going to be 45 minutes long. The other thing is, in my understanding, is for all of the exams, there are not any multiple choice questions, which means that there's going to be written responses taking place for all of them. So no multiple choice questions whatsoever. And I think the main reason for this is it's probably better test security for the College Board. You're taking it online. They are giving you multiple dates to choose from. So I think they're certainly trying to cut down on sharing of passages and people being able to look up answers or better understanding of some kind of passage that's going along. So no multiple choice questions. This is good for you in my mind, and that has nothing to do with your performance overall when it comes to the AP multiple choice things that we've been doing, because they've been very good. Your scores on poetry quizzes have been rock solid. The AP multiple choice projects that you folks are making for your exams, you did a very nice job. You got a good understanding of how the questions were working, and it's really been it's become a strength for us overall, as a course, as a student body for AP English Language and Composition, that we tend to do well on the multiple choice questions. I still think this is good for you, though, for one main thing. Assuming we were in regular classroom, around this time I was going to have an announcement for you that, not purposely, but knowingly, I've kind of been lying to you a little bit about the AP multiple choice questions. Because there was going to be a significant change for the multiple choice questions for the AP English Language and Composition exam this year. So it was still going to be passages, but you were going to go from about 55 questions down to about 45. So you were going to have 45 questions to answer in an hour, and it was going to be spread about 5 to 6 passages, shorter number of questions per passage, and they were going to be doing analytical questions like the type that you've been doing, but they were also going to do composition type questions, kind of similar to the SAT questions or PSAT, where you would be editing sentences or suggesting where a sentence get added. So things like the vocabulary and context were not going to be happening anymore. So all of the multiple choice that we've been doing this year was based on previous years. And the main reason that I had delayed in telling you about the change is because they hadn't released any kind of sample multiple choice questions that we could look at beyond about 15 questions. So at the end of March is when they were going to release a full-blown practice exam. And I wasn't worried about it because I thought that you folks would actually find the new multiple choice style questions easier to do than the traditional ones. So we were going to start taking a look at that around this time and in the next week or so, those subtle little changes that were going to be happening. But we don't have to worry about it, and I don't have to worry about explaining the differences because you don't have to answer any kind of multiple choice questions anyway. So there were planned changes that were going to be taking place specifically with the AP English Language and Composition test, but you don't have to worry about it. And so, that's something that I think is good for you, that I don't have to kind of be going, hey, here's a big change that was different from what you were expecting it to be. So no multiple choice questions, but it's kind of like one less thing that you have to worry about. And what that also means for you is, I mentioned that poetry quiz number 5 was going to be our last one. We're not going to do any more sample multiple choice questions because it's really not going to do anything to better improve you for the AP exam at this point. So you've done a boatload of them, and there's no reason to add on to that list since you're not going to be doing them on the 45-minute AP exam that you're going to do this year. So if you're not having any multiple choice questions, that means that then everything is going to be free response questions only, which I'm kind of cutting off the question only over here on this part of the screen. But they're only going to be free response questions. Now, for us, I'm not 100% as to what that means because it's only 45 minutes, which is pretty close to what you would have been doing for a typical TWA, which was 40 minutes. So I don't know if there's going to be one singular TWA that would cover only rhetorical analysis or a DRQ or a synthesis. I doubt it. I'm not sure if it means short answer questions or if you're writing almost like a thesis, little intro and a body paragraph or a couple different passages. I'm not sure. One thing that College Board has said, and again, this is for all subject areas, is they're doing less expansive topics in the sense that they know you've only been in school from August through March, so you're not going to be able to cover all the content. So if you're doing something very content-based, like a history course, Euro or World last year in 10th grade, or AP US History, or even AP Gov, they know you didn't get a chance to cover absolutely every single thing in a traditional classroom setting. So the topics, I think, are going to not focus on specifics as much as probably more general things. Rubric-wise, I don't know how they're going to be scored. With it saying less expansive, that makes me kind of wonder that they may not focus on that sophistication part quite as much. But again, I don't know if we're dealing with a 4-paragraph TWA response, a 1-paragraph kind of mini essay. And that's where really April the 3rd becomes a really important date because at that point, for every exam, should have a better idea as to what that structure is going to be. So once April the 3rd rolls around, and in the weeks that'll be coming after that, we can really kind of focus and try to tailor the instruction and the practice exercises that we'll do for the AP exam with that structure. But it's going to be a one period, or essentially similar to one class period, a 45-minute exam. What also makes that kind of nice then is that it should be easier for us to kind of simulate, to practice, because it's much simpler to take a 45-minute chunk out of your day and try to focus on doing a practice calc exam or a physics exam or whatever the case may be than practicing for 3.5 hours. So I think one other thing is it'll be a little bit more realistic for you to prepare because you have a better sense of trying to mimic and replicate what that time aspect is going to be. Why only FRQs? Mentioned to you, it might be because with multiple choice questions, they could be looked as being easier to cheat and to do searches on Google or whatnot. I've heard that they might have some kind of almost like a proxy proctor where even though you're taking it potentially online, that someone would still be looking at you or kind of watching you in some way, almost like a big brother. And that's kind of easier to do with 45 minutes and it's probably less expensive. I also think it's more original when it comes to your responses if it has to be something that you're writing out. And since you're submitting your work electronically, whether you're doing it on a device, a computer, or you're submitting a photo, a PDF, so to speak, of your work, it's probably easier to check for plagiarism. And so that's a little bit more test security. So I think they're doing a couple things with the FRQs, test security being one, but also you get a better sense based on a student's writing as to his or her overall understanding of a concept. And again, that probably holds true for all of the exams. But to say that it's going to be an essay, we can't jump to that conclusion yet. And certainly if you're taking like a calc test, that's not going to be an essay. So I would think a bunch of word problems would be happening. And again, April the 3rd is when we'll find out a little bit more about those things. But free response questions only. Those of you that are taking social studies, it might be more of like, LEQs or short answer questions. But again, April the 3rd is when we'll kind of figure that stuff out. Something else that we know then, as I mentioned, is exam prep should be streamlined. And again, April the 3rd is going to be a big date for that because we'll get more material starting to be released. I could see us using the My AP Classroom, which we haven't been using so far this year. But since we're going to try to replicate some AP exam prep, that might be a way to assign some material. Certainly, I'll look at things that we're going to do and probably try to tailor that. But as I said, they know that you're really only taking the course in the traditional sense from August through March. So that content is going to be tailored a little bit. One other thing that's nice for us from an exam prep standpoint is really based on the traditional AP exam, we've covered all the bases. We've looked at different types of rhetoric. You certainly analyzing quite a bit of it. You're still going to be doing that with Invisible Man. You've taken a look at different kinds of arguments. You have created arguments. You've been doing synthesis. You've been doing arguments just coming from your own mind. So for us, it's very much a skill-based exam, not a content-based exam. So the skills you already have, and it's pretty much just going to be honing those. So I think prep for us, rather than trying to cram in more material or feel confident that we've covered enough material, it's just making sure that we know how those skills are going to be utilized. So for the AP English language and composition, I think, again, this is something that is going to be working in our favor. And again, the other thing that mentioned is April the 3rd is obviously an important date. And so this is when we know that a lot of those answers should certainly be answered for us. So we'll know what those testing dates are and the options so far as when you can choose. We'll have more subject-specific information for the free response questions for all the subjects, so have a better sense as to what they're going to look like. I would think there would be some sample materials that are going to be released to at least kind of give you a better idea as to what to expect to look at. And as I get that information, I'll certainly be passing it along to you. Probably won't pass it along on April the 3rd itself because we'll want to digest that information and make sure I understand it before going over it with you. But it means at least that we know there's a specific point in time, April the 3rd, which should be well before a month before you take any AP exam, that we can try to answer any kind of questions that you have. And I know the College Board is going to be releasing a lot of resources to help both teachers and students. So there shouldn't be a lack of opportunities and resources out there for us to utilize to hopefully secure your solid performance on the AP exam. Most importantly, now that we at least kind of know what's going on to a certain degree, you don't need to stress. There's enough things going on in the world that right now you don't have to be stressing about any of your AP exams. Certainly speaking, when it comes to AP English language and composition, I think you need to, number one, trust yourself. Know that you know not most of the content, that you know the skills that you have to have. And in a short amount of time, we'll kind of know what that content is, the overall structure of the exam, and which content that we have covered that you'll be putting forward on that AP exam. The good news is the responsibility for that falls on my shoulders, not yours. So I'll be the one taking a look at the resources. I'll be the one getting that information out to you. I'll be the one trying to make sure that you're in your best possible scenario and frame of mind for the AP exam. That's not something that you really have to concern yourself with. So I don't want anyone right now or on April the 3rd or April the 4th, looking for what are resources that I need to find, that you need to find in order to do well in the exam. That's something that I have to take care of. I think it's also important for you to note that everyone is in the same boat with this. It's not as if one of us is having a kind of a life-changing experience that's at least kind of throwing everything upside down. The 4.2 million people that take an AP exam, they're all going through this same situation, same scenario. So, the change is for everyone. So even if someone is still in a traditional classroom setting and isn't doing remote learning the way that we are, their exam is going to be changing as well. It's not that some people would be taking the traditional exam, some people taking the online exam. Everyone's going to be doing this 45-minute exam, free response question only. So everyone is going to be in that same boat. And again, an AP test, it does tend to get weighted somehow, some way, because it's going to be subjective based on how people are writing, how people are performing. So it's not that you're going to be at a disadvantage. We're all in the same boat, and I think that's going to work well. And the last one, you're taking the test at home. It could be online. Not that you weren't going to wear pajama pants anyway, but it should be as comfortable of a testing situation as could possibly be. You have the opportunity to, certainly get some sleep the night before. You're picking the day that's going to work best for you. You can have pretty much whatever you want for breakfast. You can, you know that it's not going to be a 3-hour marathon, but you're basically going to be doing a 45-minute sprint. You know that, hey, if you need to take a nap or something, right after the test, because of the energy that you exerted, you have the ability to probably do something like that. So, so far as a test-taking environment, your bedroom or your kitchen table or wherever in your house is probably as good a place as anyone else. You don't have to worry about climate changes in the LGI room in the middle school. You don't have to worry about squeaky desks, and you don't have to worry about anyone sitting next to you, that's having a coughing fit or tapping their foot. against the table. All of those things that are outside of your control aren't anything that you have to worry about when it comes to the exam this year. So I think that's good. So as always, I'll certainly be passing along more information to you. My lights are going out on me. There we go. I'll certainly pass along information to you as it's becoming more readily available. But basically, for now until April the 3rd, we're not going to worry about AP exam things. Right now, our main focus is going to be, working on Invisible Man with your essay, getting started with Slaughterhouse 5, as I'll be talking about that, briefly here. But AP exam, at least we know what those major changes are, and we know that we'll be getting more information in the upcoming future. All right. So hope everyone has a good night. And I'll have another video coming up here in a little bit that will go into a little detail about what's happening for you this week. But most importantly, hey, stay healthy, stay safe. Take heed the warnings that are out there, and make sure you do take a little bit of time to relax for yourself as well. So I know it's kind of hard being inside all the time, limited exposure to the elements outside. Enjoy some sunshine when you can get it. Try to remove yourself from looking at a computer screen all day long. I think that's important. So I hope everyone's doing well, and look forward to seeing everyone again sometime. All right, take care.